He wrote furiously, all day and sometimes through the night as well, standing at his high desk. Books poured out. In 1843, while Marx was in Paris, Kierkegaard published 9 books in as many months. They contain the most detailed analysis of the possibilities of human existence yet done by anyone, and they use many pseudonyms and a whole battery of tricks and other stratagems to deceive the reader into the truth, to lead him to faith. Kierkegaard doesn't approach religious belief in the old doctrinal kind of way. The reason is that he is all the time working from the human end. He's concerned with the subjective rather than the objective side of religion, or as he sometimes says, with the how rather than with the what. He works within the human sphere. He explores different possibilities of human life, with the object eventually of showing that Christianity is the spiritual discipline that leads us to true selfhood, that tunes up our individuality to the highest pitch. And because he works entirely within the human sphere, the realm of our experience, Kierkegaard is also a sort of humanist. But he's quite unlike Marx because he puts no trust at all in progress or in history or in any human group. He's interested in nothing but what he calls inwardness or subjectivity, the quality of our individuality. Kierkegaard feared that in modern consumer society, the individual was becoming absorbed into the crowd, a mere member of the public. The spiritual life of the individual was being stifled by communal political and religious illusions. In a cheap age, the Church had knocked down the price of becoming a Christian.
Oh, Christendom is pampered with the nonsense that the Christian God is a decent and harmless chap, a good fellow, and especially a friend of female busyness and the begetting of children. All human effort tends towards herding together. Let us unite, etc. Naturally, this happens under all sorts of high-sounding names. Love and sympathy and enthusiasm and the carrying out of some grand plan and the like. This is the usual hypocrisy of the scoundrels we are. But the truth is that in a herd we are free from the standard of the individual and the ideal. So, millions of men live and die. They are just numbers, and the numerical becomes their horizon, their all. That is to say, they are just copies. And Christianity, which in the divine love wants every man to be an individual, has been transformed by human bungling into precisely the opposite. The New Testament consists of the demand to dare as a single person to have to do with God. We men reply, let us unite to worship God. The more we are, the happier, the truer, the more we shall please God. Christendom's guilt is really that it makes a fool of God, considers that he is a fool, lets him sit and wait in heaven, and so plays at Christianity on the common, or in theatres built for the purpose, called houses of God. Much the same is true of the modern parson. He is a skillful, active, quick man, who finds it perfectly easy, with the aid of attractive conversation and bearing, to slip in a little Christianity, almost without you noticing. What an abomination are these Protestant pastors, who at most read what has cost others mortal struggles, and then use it as purple passages in their sermons. My task is so new that in Christianity's 1800 years there is literally not one from whom I can learn how it should be done. For all extraordinary men who have hitherto lived have aimed at spreading Christianity. My task is to put a halt to a lying diffusion of Christianity, to help it to shake off a mass of nominal Christians. The worst danger for Christianity is not heresies, heterodoxies, not free thinkers, nor profane worldliness and so on, no. It is the kind of orthodoxy which is hearty twaddle, mediocrity with a dash of sugar. In every way, it has come to this, that what one now calls Christianity is precisely what Christ came to abolish.
During the year 1846, Kierkegaard was regularly ridiculed in a satirical journal called The Corsair. Its caricatures singled out his spindly legs, his odd trousers, and his stick or umbrella. The cruelest cartoon referred to the unhappy business of his broken engagement to Regina. All this did nothing to raise Kierkegaard's opinion of the mass media.
The daily press is properly calculated to make personality impossible, for it has the effect of an immense abstraction, the generation which has infinite power over the single person. The mass of men, of course, have no opinion, but here it comes. This deficiency is helped out by the journalists, who live by hiring out opinions. If I were a father and had a daughter who was seduced, I should by no means give her up. But if I had a son who became a journalist, I should regard him as lost.
The cruelty of the caricatures and the public mockery to which they led forced Kierkegaard into deeper isolation. But the fact that the world saw him as a clownish figure only increased his determination to counterattack. To the public, his writings, with their huge cast of characters, seemed a kind of theatre, just as the church seemed to be concerned with Christianity.
The difference between the theatre and the church is essentially this. The theatre, honestly and honourably, acknowledges itself to be what it is. On the other hand, the church is a theatre which dishonestly tries in every way to hide what it is. For example, on the theatre board is always plainly written, money will not be returned. The church, this solemn sanctity, would shudder at the scandal, the offensiveness of writing this above the church door. The actor is an honest man who says plainly, I am an actor. One could never get a priest to say that at any price. It is lucky, therefore, that the church has the theatre alongside it, for the theatre is a wag. Really, a sort of witness to the truth, which gives the secret away. Preaching the gospel, parson and convert. You must die to the world, fee 1 guinea. Well, I can well understand that if I'm to die to the world, I shall have to fork out more than 1 guinea, but just one question. Who gets the guinea? Well, naturally, I get it. It's my living. For I and my family have to live by preaching that one must die to the world. If you are reasonable, you will see that to preach that one must die to the world, if it is done seriously and with zeal, takes a lot out of a man. So I really have to spend the summer in the country with my family to get some recreation. It happened that a fire broke out backstage in a theatre. The clown came out to inform the public. They thought it was a jest and applauded. He repeated his warning. They shouted even louder. So I think the world will come to an end amid general applause from the wits, who believe that it is a joke.
By 1855, at the age of 42, Kierkegaard was worn out, and the money he'd inherited from his father was gone. He collapsed in the street. He was taken to his deathbed in the Fredericks Hospital, where he refused to receive the sacrament from a priest and wouldn't see his brother Peter. There was disorder at the funeral, which greatly embarrassed Peter, who was a bishop. He long delayed placing a permanent tombstone to mark the grave. It was a fitting end for someone who was always an oddity, an outsider, an exception, a corrective, an individual. Why did Kierkegaard end his life with such a savage assault on Christendom? He was attacking an illusion. The established church was supporting the rapid modernization of Danish society in the belief that the new liberal state would be a continuation of Christendom by other means. Kierkegaard said, no, that's a fatal error. The modern state is secular through and through, and a church married to it will end by losing sight of its own gospel. The problem of meaning and value is not going to be solved in future by the social order. We're not going to have God given us as our birthright. Rather, Christianity is forced back to its original starting point in the individual heart and conscience. Marx, of course, agrees that man has come of age, that the world is now purely human and secular, and that we face a consequent crisis in values. But for Marx, value is a function of our objective social relations. Change those politically, and the problem of restoring value to human life is solved. The divergence between Kierkegaard and Marx during the 1840s remains fundamental to us to this day. Some of us are instinctively political. To others, it's equally obvious that the problem of finding a philosophy of life and a faith to live by today is in the end a religious problem that can only be solved within the individual human spirit. But those who think Kierkegaard is right had better count the cost. In order to save the traditional sense of life's ultimate religious importance, he squeezed the whole of traditional doctrine with all its supernatural, indeed cosmic conflicts within the narrow compass of the human soul. This certainly had the effect of heightening subjectivity, but at a price. The Kierkegaardian self remains a theatre of conflict all its life.
A human being must live in such a state of anguish that if he were a pagan, he would not hesitate to commit suicide. In this state, then, he must live. Only in this state can he love God.